Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Charlie Brown Politics. Let's get right into it. Glenn Greenwald recently had a debate with I don't know what you would call him, a gamer turned political analysis, a man that goes by the name of Destiny. And I believe his last name is Child, and if it's not, it should be. So, him and Glenn Greenwald get together to have a debate on the events of what happened on J6 to discuss if it was actually an insurrection, if it was actually a coup. And there was a whole 3-hour debate that Glenn and Destiny's Child had earlier with more people in it. And that was pretty interesting. Glenn put the hammer down the entire debate. That's how I first came about this. But they decided to have a round two, and the video's out, and there were so many good clips that I had to share with you guys, because Glenn just brings the house and totally destroys, dismantles, disembowels this man in this intellectual discussion. But, you know, if you have not seen Glenn Greenwald debate somebody, this is what he always does. So, warning for all of you that want to debate Glenn, don't do it. So without further ado, let me bring up some of these clips that I'm talking about, and we're just going to let them play and we'll react.
There was one time, and only one time, when Donald Trump addressed the question of whether or not violence should be used when those people went to the Capitol. And what he said was this, quote, "I know that everybody here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard." And the fact that people, because he said peacefully, then have to resort to things like, oh, well, he invoked political cliches like fight like hell. Politicians use fight like hell in almost every speech. Joe Biden, you can read this in the New York Times on December 2nd, said, quote, "I want to make sure we're going to be fighting like hell." You can find pretty much every politician saying that. So that's one thing, is that to the extent you want to say that Donald Trump was somehow involved in this quote unquote insurrection, the only thing he did was give a constitutionally protected speech. And that is the reason why Jack Smith has not charged him with inciting or participating in an insurrection. It's not my opinion. Obviously, Jack Smith shares the opinion that he could never obtain a conviction. The second thing is, on the numbers, 2,000 people, let's use the maximum number, went into the Capitol. A small percentage, a tiny percentage of people who went into the Capitol actually used violence. So most of those people, the vast majority, according to the U.S. government themselves, were doing nothing other than peacefully protesting. Again, protesters entering the Capitol without authorization, occupying offices of members of Congress in order to pressure them to take some step or not take some step is something that happens all the time. We've seen many more than 2,000 protesters. So don't.
And just to help give some strength to Glenn's argument, so all these people that were Trump lovers, what's a common theme that gets put out there among Trump lovers? And that's they love Trump and they love their guns, correct? So all these Trump-loving, gun-loving nuts went to the Capitol to go overtake it, but they all forgot their guns. Did you grab the guns? No, I brought the mittens. So that's what Jimmy Joyer always says. So a bunch of people came and forgot their guns. So we'll keep going.
Don't try and imply that on January 6th, 2,000 armed people or well-trained people intending to commit violence went into the Capitol. The most of that number that you could possibly squeeze out of it is something like 100 or 150. And now we're back way closer to the most ridiculous example that I began by asking you about, where even you said, oh, that probably shouldn't be called an insurrection, than we are to an actual threat to American power or to our system of government, which is necessary to claim in order to turn this into what you want to turn it into.
Okay, just before I respond to this, so then do you think then that the Whiskey Rebellion or the Whiskey Insurrection, was that not a rebellion or insurrection then in your eyes?
People rebelling against
Wait, I'm sorry, wait, say that again?
I think it's a rebellion. I think it's a rebellion. I don't think I would call it an insurrection. I think it's perfectly fine to call it a rebellion. I would have to look a lot more into the facts of exactly what happened with the Whiskey Rebellion. I haven't thought about that question before, but I think the word rebellion is vague enough that any kind of protest could be called a rebellion. I mean, people who are protesting and interrupting political events and going to the White House and banging on the fence against the war in Israel and U.S. support for it are rebelling against U.S. policy. I don't have a problem with that term. But I have to look a lot more closely at the Whiskey Rebellion to be able to say definitively whether I regard that.
If you want to make these arguments that any protest can be called a coup or rebellion, you're free to make that argument. But you have to understand that you are using it in an ahistorical way that no legal...
And he didn't use protest. Every protest is an insurrection/coup. So listen to how he tries to switch up what Glenn is saying. Even Glenn's like, what? I don't think I said that. So here we go.
Legal scholar, that nobody who's passed laws in Congress that refers to an insurrection or rebellion, literally nobody in the legislative or historical context in the United States has used rebellion or insurrection to mean protest. That has just never been the case.
It is entirely...
What?
My argument, that's not my argument at all. My argument is that what happened on January 6th was a protest.
That's fine, but I'm saying that what you just said, any two people knocking on a fence might be considered a rebellion or insurrection. That can be your assessment, or that the Whiskey Rebellion was a rebellion but not an insurrection. That might be your assessment, but at the time, it was known as the Whiskey Insurrection, which was around the time when people were drafting the 14th Amendment. So I would think that their understanding of what an insurrection was at the time is probably a more important analysis than what your personal subjective and convenient interpretation of what an insurrection might be right now.
Now you're just ranting. I mean, this claim that like everyone who was ever involved in the lawmaking process or the legislative process sees the term as you do. We can agree, just like to set this fact straight, that Jack Smith, who charged Donald Trump with many crimes, including crimes that were considered quite aggressive from a prosecutorial perspective, like he was not a overly cautious prosecutor, but a quite aggressive one who stretched a lot of theories to accuse him of certain felonies. He chose not to accuse Donald Trump of a crime that is in the U.S. Code, which is participating in or inciting an insurrection. You agree that that's not part of what Jack Smith charged Donald Trump
I agree
with,
that
right?
Jack Smith hadn't charged him with that, but whether or not somebody did something isn't relevant to a particular criminal charge.
Do you have
well, I mean, there's two reasons. Well, one is because
members of the lawmakers are on your side. Why didn't he?
Well, because one, if we're talking about, for instance, the 14th Amendment, a criminal conviction isn't relevant here. We don't need a criminal conviction for...
No, I'm asking why Jack Smith... I'm not talking about the banning from the ballot. That'll be a U.S. Supreme Court decision, and the courts have thus far split on that question. Democratic judges in Colorado, and then secretaries of state in California and Rhode Island, both have taken the opposite position. I'm not asking you about whether he should be stricken from the ballot or you need a criminal conviction. I'm asking you, why did Jack Smith, an extremely aggressive prosecutor in these cases, not charge Donald Trump with inciting or participating in an insurrection?
It could be for a variety of reasons. It could be that that's a question.
Do you have an idea?
Well, I was about to, but then you cut me off. Yeah.
Go ahead.
It could be that he feels like he doesn't have enough strength to secure a conviction for insurrection. It could be that if you actually read the statute for insurrection, even the criminal statute itself is like kind of vague because it uses insurrection like in the statute of insurrection. It doesn't really give much guidance as to what it is. Nobody in the history of the United States has ever been charged with that particular crime. And it could just be that he felt like there was an easier prosecutorial path to go. You're not seriously you're not of the contention right now that if somebody isn't charged with a particular crime, nobody thought they did it, right? You don't think that prosecutors just think that we're going to charge you with everything we think you did, right? You understand that when people are charging crimes, they're charging what they think they can get a conviction on, yeah?
Yes, having worked in the legal profession as a lawyer for more than a decade, I do actually understand that sometimes prosecutors opt not to charge people with crimes, even though they may think they're guilty. What I'm saying is a specific case of a prosecutor who has demonstrated an eagerness to be extremely aggressive in the charging documents, including bringing crimes that many legal experts, including ones who aren't pro-Trump, believe is quite a stretch and will be very difficult to prove in court, opted not to charge Donald Trump with participating in or inciting an insurrection. I think your answer is actually correct, that he believes it would be very difficult to prove that what took place on January 6th was an insurrection and or that Trump participated in or incited it.
Boom, bro. Who is Destiny? I don't even know who this guy is. He debated Jackson Hinkle once, got his ass beat in that as well, and now he's coming at Glenn Greenwald with this amount of like disrespect. This is Glenn Greenwald, one of the greatest journalists of our time. he's so far where you are at, Destiny. It's you can't even compare the two. So that's the first clip that I want to show you guys. Um, and so let me just go to the next one. There's just going to be a few more. As you can see, Glenn completely just takes every point this guy has and just disembowels him. Oh my God. Okay. And Glenn, so I feel like it's just too easy for Glenn. Like I gave the warning in the beginning, if you're gonna debate Glenn, you better come prepared. So here we go.
Just answer to humor me. How many people were killed by the insurrectionists on January 6th?
I guess it depends on if you count them taking drugs. Is that killing themselves?
Right. The only people who died, right, you can say some of them actually died, and one of them was shot by the Capitol Hill police, but the people who are being called insurrectionists or the attempted coup against the most powerful militarized nation in the world did not kill a single person on January 6th. That was why the anti-Trump media had to invent
That
a
has
lie
no stop
that
with
a
the weird
Capitol Hill
partisan.
police officer.
Oh
It
my
shows
God.
what a joke
It's
this
such a
entire
partisan. You're
riot
such a
was.
partisan hack.
What the hell did you just say?
Partisan. You're
riot
such a
was.
partisan hack. Just engage with the facts. Both of us agree that you don't need people to die for it to be an insurrection, right?
Wait,
so why do you keep bringing that up?
You're the one who goes around devoting yourself and urging people to vote for one of the two political parties. I have never done that in my entire life. I've spent the last 4 months attacking one of the core policies of the Republican Party, which is U.S. support for Israel. I don't go
That's
around
great.
encouraging people to vote
Glenn,
for the Republican
Glenn,
Party.
why
You're
does
the one who goes around.
Yes.
Your
Can I
entire community is
can I bring
your
it back?
entire community is
Glenn,
filled with
Glenn.
Democratic Party partisans.
Glenn, can
How
I
dare
bring it-
you call anybody else a partisan? That is what you are at your core,
Gotcha.
Destiny.
Yeah, Destiny's Child. Listen up, okay? Glenn Greenwald has spent his entire career criticizing both sides of the aisle. And just like Glenn said, I have never once heard Glenn go out and tell anybody to vote any certain way. All this man does is just bring you the facts. And from what I could tell from the little bit I found about Destiny's Child is that he goes around just pretty much telling people to vote for Joe Biden. Okay, be like, yes, Joe has all these things that we have to, but he's not as bad as Trump. Oh my God. So, great job, Glenn. Just keep calling out that bullshit. Let's watch one more clip that that I feel like yeah, it's just a good clip. Let's just watch one more, shall we?
I think we've gone over sufficiently the amount of people who were actually there engaging in violence of any kind with any kind of an insurrectionary intent, which is I'll be generous and say that 100 or 120 of them were being. But can I just establish a point of agreement, because I've never heard you actually acknowledge that this was true, that in this speech, you're trying to depict these people as kind of like mindless zombies who just follow the orders of Donald Trump and do whatever he instructs them to do. Do you agree that, and can you acknowledge that in his speech, there was one time and one time only where he addressed the question of whether or not violence should be used at that protest they were going to at the Capitol? And when addressing that on one occasion, he told them to go there and protest peacefully. Is that something you acknowledge is what he told them?
So I would acknowledge that. However, on my YouTube channel, we try to engage in serious political analysis.
Oh yeah. Oh man, yeah. If Destiny's Child engages in serious political analysis, then Kamala Harris is seriously putting out some positive outreach to the black community. Yeah, fucking right, bro. Oh my God. So there we have it, guys. On the J6 events, I'm not a Trump supporter, but this was definitely used for political reasons. If you haven't seen the videos of police letting them in and taking down the barricades and the rate apps, all of it's too suspicious. You know, why wouldn't they have more police officers there when they knew the protest was going to be taking place? So many questions. Okay, that's where I'm standing. So I saw this clip. I just had to get it out. Glenn Greenwald completely dismantles, disembowels, destroys this little punk, this little shit. Um, and so, I mean, Destiny's Child, let me say this, bro. Intellectually, you are a midget. And Glenn Greenwald is a giant, okay? He'll fuck around and step on you and not even know it. So don't ever fucking step up on the mic and come at him with that type of disrespect, okay? Glenn has sacrificed so much more for the cause than you ever fucking will. And he completely wiped the floor with you in this debate. So I hope you're embarrassed, bro. I mean, you're probably not. You're probably sitting there thinking that you won the debate. Isn't that strange how life is sometimes? But there you go. There's my take on it. There's the debate between Glenn Greenwald and Destiny's Child. Go check out the whole debate. It's on Glenn's Rumble page. If you're not following Glenn on Rumble, go follow him. Go follow him on the social medias. Like always, Glenn does great work. He has his show that he does on Rumble, System Update, that is excellent to watch. So thank you, Glenn, for speaking that voice of reason, coming in there with your vast knowledge, and like I said, you're an intellectual giant, bro. So shout out to Glenn Greenwald there, holding it down. Let's wrap up this video, guys. What do you think? Am I completely wrong in my analysis on this debate? Doubtful, but yeah, just what are you thinking on Glenn, on Destiny's Child? Please leave it down below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that. And I will catch you on the next episode of Charlie Brown Politics. Thanks, everybody.